I could barely breathe as I drove down the street. Tears slid down my cheeks, and I was gritting my teeth so hard it felt like my molars were going to crack. Eventually, I pulled over. I wasn't going to be able to drive right like this. I had to keep moving my black hair out of my face. Eventually, I kept my fingers laced in my hair, pressed the back of my head to my car seat, and screamed. I screamed so hard that my throat burned, that I felt it deep within my chest, that I could feel my emotions exiting my body. My heart felt like a train, threatening to burst from my chest. My brain felt like it was burning. I took a few deep breaths and let my hair go. 3 weeks ago, my sister came to me, okay? She told me that she was having terrible nightmares, okay? She showed me her arms. Deep bruises covered her wrist, and her fingernails were bruised. Bruises went right up her arms. She removed the makeup from her face to reveal a deep black eye and a gash across her nose that she had been concealing with a band-aid. She showed me everything. My sister just turned 16, and my first thought was that someone had been hurting her. I questioned her, assured her that I would take her to the hospital and that everything would be okay. But she was adamant that it was just bad dreams. I went to my father with concerns. He told me that Miley was probably getting into fights at school and was trying to cover her tracks or something. I knew that he would go and yell at her if I continued pressing, so I let it go. My father had become increasingly stressed ever since our mom was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. Miley and I went from being his best girls to the most hated people in his vicinity. It fell on me to help my sister, and she tried to hide her stress and fear. Well, I had to watch my mom when my dad was working and my sister was at school. I tried to keep everything together for all of us, but as time went on, I just wanted to make sure Miley and I ended up okay. And I know that sounds selfish. Last week, my mom left the house around midnight. My dad wasn't home yet, and Miley was asleep. I could catch her and be back before anyone knew that we were gone. It would be fine. Everything was going to be okay. But it wasn't that easy. My mom took me on a chase. She ran as if she had somewhere to be. I was gone for about 70 minutes. My mom mumbled about the moon the whole time, how she felt like it was moving her blood. When I got her home, I went to check on Miley right away. If she woke up from a nightmare, she would want company before she fell back asleep. I moved up the stairs as fast as possible. I was only gone for about 30 minutes, so she should have been okay. My mind was screaming at me to check on her when I entered her bedroom. My foot was lifted from under me, and I had slipped on something. I quickly slid my right hand along the wall and turned on the light. Soon as my eyes adjusted, I could feel my body grow tense. My whole body felt stiff, like I couldn't move or scream, even if I wanted to. Blood coated her black blanket and matching sheets, her white pillow, and the floor next to the bed. Splatter carried up the wall and nearly reached the ceiling. It was everywhere. The window was wide open, and as soon as I noticed, I ran right over to it. There was no one outside. To make a long story short, I called the cops, and after they investigated, we were told that no one can lose that much blood and survive. My father was their primary suspect. He blamed me, threw me out. My mom went to a home, and now here I am. I eventually composed myself enough to turn on the radio, hoping that some music would help me calm down. But I couldn't get a connection to any radio station. Each channel I flipped through landed on dead air. Eventually, I left one of the channels on and continued driving. I was hoping to find a motel or something. A bar especially sounded nice. Eventually, my radio buzzed to life, and a man's voice spoke. "Are you a lost traveler, looking for a place to belong, seeking refuge from your stressful life?" A jingle played behind the sentence. Tease the smooth talking man made my ear twitch. Something about his voice was calm and extremely inviting, enticing even. "The Terminus truck stop is what you're looking for. Just take a right and come on in. We are hiring." the man exclaimed before my radio turned off completely. I was admittedly pretty shocked, and it made me laugh. It was as if something came over me. I don't know what it was, perhaps curiosity, or maybe the realization that I needed a job after being kicked out. It was the middle of nowhere though. There was nothing but a long stretch of road behind me. A few cars drove past me, and I continued driving, picking up speed a little. After about 15 minutes, a turn came up, as if it had appeared from nowhere. I gripped the steering wheel as hard as possible, maybe too hard. As I came down the road, my eyes slowly widened. Sitting at the end was a truck stop, one of the biggest I had ever seen. The building itself was white with a red trim. There was one large area with the word food in bright red letters. I figured it glowed when the sun went down. The other half of the building was much bigger and had multiple words. It's plastered on the side. Sleep plus TV plus games plus fuel. The Terminus building sign sat on a tall white board. It was lined in red lights, and the words were a bright, beaming blue. I watched as it twisted for a second before eyeing the row of red gas pumps with white trim and bits of blue sprinkling in. Some trucks were parked around the area, many of them for companies I couldn't recognize. As I got out of my car and walked inside, smelled the most delicious chicken hit my nose. I suddenly felt starving, like I could eat a whole buffet. The checkered floors and retro soda machines brought a smile to my face for reasons that were hard to explain. The tables were white and red, and the counter and booths were blue and white. Various paintings hung on the walls, and I couldn't help but take a moment to look at them. I weaved through the lines of people to read some. The first painting that drew my eye was a large farmhouse surrounded by beautiful rows of corn. An older man, a woman, and a dog sat on the porch. 4 scarecrows, each wearing a different facial expression, were peppered throughout the corn. The plaque read, "Mercy Farms, 1699. The painting looked like it was done with a lot of love and care by someone who clearly knew what they were doing. I moved to the next painting, large apartment buildings that stretched on forever littered. The canvas, the detail was sublime. I could see people painted in the windows, cars that looked like models I had never seen parked in various parking spots, some lights in a few windows, and something in the field of grass that I couldn't quite make out. The plaque read, "Little Brook, 1995. Asterisk, there were so many paintings left to see. Okay, I could feel curiosity overtake my brain. It felt like I was diving into something that was calling to me. Maybe that had been calling to me for a long time. Let my body wander over to one more painting. This one was slightly bigger than the rest. The top of the painting featured a large sun, and I could almost feel its heat permeating off the page. Further in the back, I could make out a football field, and even further behind that, there seemed to be a blue sun poking out of the tree line. This building in the painting looked like a high school, one that was in pretty good shape. I could see various figures in the windows, and a groundskeeper painted right in front of the building. Greenridge High School, 2015. I moved to the side to see one last picture. I couldn't help myself. There was a blinding light beaming down on a house and a gray man. At least, I thought it was a man. But I was pulled out of my investigation when someone tapped my shoulder. "Hello." A man with short red hair and beaming green eyes smiled at me. He wore black cargo pants, boots, and a black t-shirt. He had a red belt on and a pistol on his hip, and a beautiful white watch sat on his wrist. The key looked like he worked out, like he could lift me up and simply carry me away. Hi, I coughed out. "My name is Tom. Are you here about the open position?" He asked me as he tucked his hands into his pockets. I wondered what brought him to me. There were at least 20 other people in here eating. Was I here to get a job? Part of me was screaming yes, but a softer part was telling me no. My brain was telling me I wasn't ready. I shook my head before putting a small smile on my face. "Yeah, I heard the commercial on my radio while I was driving by. I figured I'd come and check it out. I told him honestly. Tom held his hand out, and we shook hands. "Come with me to the back room and let's get you situated," Tom said as he turned and motioned for me to follow. As our shoes clicked off the floor and the conversations from people eating and waiting in line filled my ears, I let a shock fall over my body. There was no interview, no questions asked. I just got the job on the spot. I walked behind him and smiled at the smells of fresh coffee, baked goods, chicken, and whatever else they were cooking. The people around me wore black outfits, much like Tom. Each one had a red belt on, but no weapons of any kind. The cooks wore white outfits with red belts. I didn't recognize a single brand on any of the packaging. And I was at ease with that dot. Once we reached the back room, Tom motioned for me to sit across from his desk. As I sat down and sank into the chair, I felt like my body was consumed by warmth, paintings, pictures, both in color and black and white, and various other objects littered the room. "We are hiring for the late shift, for our diner only. Here," Tom said as he slid a small packet across the desk. "Please take a look at this." I leaned forward and took the red pamphlet. As I flipped it open, I read the first few pages. "Welcome to the Terminus truck stop. During the day, we serve our regular customers. Please treat them with care and respect. When the sun goes down, our clientele changes. Okay? Please read the rules below and follow them to the letter. 1. You are not to go outside during your shift. Trash can be taken out at 7:30 a.m. 2. If a creature appears outside, do not go outside to confront it. Leave it be. 3. All of our employees wear a variation of the same outfit. If you see someone behind the counter who does not match this description, kill it with your service weapon, for a raven will sometimes appear at the drive-thru window. It's harmless. Do not try to get rid of it. To B. 5. You are never to go to the other side of the building for any reason. You are never to leave with a trucker for any reason. 6. There is no reason to get to know your co-workers during your first month. Your service weapon is your friend. Use it at your discretion. Blinked a few times and reread the list. The rest of the pamphlet featured the brief history of the location. I was so consumed with reading that it took me a second to realize Tom had placed items in front of me. There was a red and a blue belt sitting on his desk. Each one had a holster. I don't know what came over me. I wasn't nervous, scared, or even slightly concerned. I stood up, reached over the table, and grabbed the blue belt. Tom raised his eyebrow at me. "What?" I asked as I watched him move and grab a uniform for me. I was being given a blue uniform and a blue set of boots. No one ever picks blue, Tom says with a slight change to his voice. It was deeper. He was looking at me like I was suspicious. I wanted to ask why, but something was pushing me to keep my mouth shut. I was drawn to the blue from the moment I saw it outside. Choosing it happened before I could even think of it. "Do I need to sign anything?" I asked Tom as I held my uniform tightly. "No, but you do have to head into the employee restroom and get changed. Your shift starts when the sun goes down." I felt at home in the uniform. I pulled my hair into a loose ponytail and rested my hand on the empty holster. The people who were cooking didn't bother to introduce themselves to me. They moved almost robotically. The cashiers smiled at me and would shoot me a wave every so often. Remembered Rule 6 and didn't bother approaching them as soon as the sun went down. One of my coworkers called. "Shift time, Valentine." I blinked. I hadn't introduced myself to anyone. Hell, I forgot to introduce myself to Tom. How did this chick know my name? "I hear you," I called back before making a face. I didn't know her name. Could have checked her nama tag, but Rule 6 rang in my ear. I wasn't going to break any rules, especially on my first day. Terminus came alive at night. I thought it was busy in the morning, but wow, was I wrong? Cars filled the parking lot, and the diner became so packed that I had to bob and weave. The place was buzzing with life, and it actually made me feel happy, till I felt something grab my wrist. I was pulled to a man, and he held me close, like we were married. His clammy hand hurt my wrist as he clenched it. I could feel his breath beating on my forehead, and the smell of cigarettes and eggs hit my nose. As he held me closer, I could feel the sweat on his beer belly. "How would you like to take a drive with me?" he asked me as he licked his lips. "Sir, let go of me. I am not going anywhere with you," Kaz said, seriously, as I tilted my head up slowly. Kaz were completely black, aside from white dots. My whole body tensed, and I put my teeth together. Fear, true fear, like I was staring at the face of evil itself. I tried to use my hand to reach for my weapon, but my holster was empty. I started shaking, and I could feel tears filling my eyes as he tightened his grip. Rule 5. Never leave with a trucker for any reason. "I am not leaving," spit out, quivering as the man released his grip on me. He turned and simply exited the diner, walking out into the darkness into a black truck at one of the pumps. I stood there for a second, shaking. I could barely move my legs. I felt my eyes twitched as people ate and chatted. My body continued to shake. I was still scared, and since I wasn't allowed to go outside, I walked to the closest window. I was looking out at an empty parking lot that would lead directly to the other side of the building. As I sat there, watching the emptiness, I cocked my head. Something was moving, and I could barely see it until its head turned towards me. A large creature came barreling towards the window. I once again reached for the empty holster as the beast met me at the window. It was beautiful, gorgeous even, but horrific in its own way. My shaking got worse, and my mind was screaming at me that it wasn't real. It couldn't be real. The creature stood on 2 legs, and it was covered in beautiful gray fur. Large wings covered in various patterns, adorned in purples, blues, and reds, covered a lot of its body. Folded over the creature like a cloak, it had large blue eyes, and it looked kind of like a humanoid moth. It didn't blink at me, and I didn't blink at it. Something compelled me forward. I took a big step and pressed my palm on the window before looking around. No one was bothered by this. No one even looked at me. I turned back to the creature and heard a voice slip inside my head, rattling around my skull. It itched my brain as it spoke. "The barriers are lower." The creature spoke to me. "What does that mean?" I quivered as I asked, almost like I was scared of the answer. "You'll find out in due time. Marked 1. The creature hissed at me. "Are you here to kill us?" I found myself asking before I could process the question. "No, I was drawn to you, as you are drawn to me," the creature said before turning and walking away. I had to will myself to stay still because I felt compelled to follow the beast. I remembered the rules. I was not to go confront the creatures outside, but it was hard not to want to know more. Was what I saw even real? I thought that I could be asleep in my car, and this whole thing could be a dream. I was snapped out of it by a scream coming from the kitchen. It was blood-curdling. It echoed through the whole diner, but no one turned their attention to it. I quickly sprinted towards the kitchen and pushed the little door out of my way to get behind the counter. The cashiers had frozen in place. They weren't turning to help. They paused with cash in their hands, like someone had hit pause on their bodies. As soon as I reached the kitchen, something hit me from the side. The wind was knocked out of me as I slammed into the floor. I forced my eyes open, and as I did, my blood ran cold. A creature wearing a black t-shirt and cargo pants looked down at me. It wasn't wearing one of our belts, though, that much. I could see it had short black hair, but no eyes. Sharp teeth hung out of its mouth, and it had one ear that was barely in the shape of something human. It looked like it tried to copy what a human might look like, and failed. It opened its mouth at me as I squirmed. It let out the same scream, that got me to come running. Rule 3. I was supposed to kill this thing, but I never received a weapon. I felt something sink into my side. The pain was immense, and I screamed and bucked my hips. I freed one of my arms and slammed my fist into the creature. It didn't budge, and as I screamed for help, it became apparent that no one was coming. "Let me go," I screamed as I tried to push the monster. I gagged as I tasted blood at the back of my throat. It rose, keeping its hand inside of me. Tana was suddenly being dragged across the floor. I screamed again and tried to kick, but I could barely concentrate as the pain shot through my body. I watched as the creature opened something behind me. I screamed as the creature lowered towards me and sank its teeth into my shoulder. Every other instance of pain I had ever felt in my life couldn't compare to this. My heart rate increased and tears poured out of my eyes as it ripped its head up. Pain shot through my body. I yipped like a wounded dog. It leaned closer to me, licked its lips, spoke in near-perfect English. "Your sister squealed like you when I tore into her thigh. You taste the same." It hissed at me. My brain went static, couldn't process anything. All I could hear after that was white noise. I came back to it as a tongue slid across my face, and the slime lingered on my skin. "You cry the same?" It teased. I don't think I ever cried so much. But as the wind hit the back of my head, something willed me to swing my free arm around and reach for my holster. It's time. I felt something metallic and cold at my fingertips. My weapon. I let out a scream loud enough to drown out the sound of my beating heart. Fear consumed me in ways that I had never felt before. My right hand shook with trepidation. My head pounded with apprehension. I swung my arm up at the same time as the imposter raised its arm and swung its clawed, human-like hand down at me. I just kept screaming as I fired the gun and twisted my head to try and protect my neck. I felt the claws sink into my face and cut me open with ease. I felt the pain wash over me like water on sand. When I finally opened my eyes, I saw a corpse next to me, its head blown wide open. Half of my vision was consumed by crimson, and half of my body was engulfed in pain. I could tell that I still had my eye. Got me on the right side of my face, on my left shoulder, and stabbed my right side. Yet, I still had the will to get up and move. My ear was pounding. I slowly scraped myself to my feet as I turned around to see where the wind was coming from, and there it was, the open door. I knew that I couldn't go outside, but there was something about the area that made me pause. The trees swayed in the wind, and I could see figures in the darkness. Some of the figures walked on all fours, some flew, and some seemed to be human, while others were animals. I turned to the corpse and grabbed it by its shirt. With whatever strength I had left, I dragged it to the door and kicked it a few times before I slammed the door. I wasn't about to go outside and deal with that. I wasn't breaking rules. But what the imposter said rattled in my brain. I limped through the kitchen, and everyone had resumed working. As I passed through the drive-through window, I heard something weird. "Hello?" a voice cried out. I was looking at the most beautiful raven, and as it looked back at me, it felt like we had reached an understanding. "Hello, I need to grab a medkit." I coughed at the bird, and it cocked its head at me. "You don't belong here." The bird blinked. I faced the bird and narrowed my eyes a little. I could feel the blood running down my body. "I think you might be right," I whispered back at the bird. "Terminus will hold," the bird said before snatching a beak full of fries and flying off. There was a calmness that washed over me being near the bird. I do think that it was right. This wasn't the job for me. I limped back to Tom's office and simply walked in, not caring if I was interrupting. "Tom," croaked out to the man. He didn't look surprised, though I was slightly pissed that he didn't come out to help me. Double quotes, "No one ever chooses the blue belt." Tom whispered to me as he got up and grabbed a med kit from the dresser next to him. I have to quit, I mumbled, as he dressed my wounds using gauze and a weird paste. Smells so good, like strawberries and fresh chocolate. I know, the good news is that this stuff will help you recover. You won't need a hospital, but you'll have to take it easy, Tom said as I raised my shirt so he could dress my side. I had so many questions. What is this? Asked Tom as I watched him pull items from under his desk. My body was still trembling. I was still scared. For sanctuary for people who are infected by whatever is seeping into our world. There used to be 6 locations like this. However, we are now down to 4. Everything you need to know is in this tome, he said, as he pulled out a blue backpack and started stuffing items inside it. I wish I could help you more, but the longer you stay here, the more likely you'll die, Tom said quickly as he shoved cash into the bag into a brand new blue wallet and handed me a stack. He was moving far too quickly to make me feel comfortable. Tom, I winced, wanted to ask him why he hired me on the spot, why blue was important, and what the hell was going on. But he got up and handed me the blue wallet and helped put the blue backpack on me. You have to go. Get in your car and go. Read the book and by the gods, survive, Tom said as he practically pushed me out of the room. As I walked through the kitchen, every worker was staring at me, unblinking, unmoving, just smiling. I quickly made my way past them and made for the door I entered from. The sun was coming up and my shift was over. I turned to take one last look at the dining area. Rows of white dots stared back at me. I barreled through the glass doors and moved so fast that it made me cry. Pain shot around my body like a twisted pinball as I spotted my car in the distance and tried to pick up the pace. A familiar voice rang out from one of the gas pumps next to me. I turned to face the Raven, and it turned to face me. Nevermore, it asked. Nevermore, I replied as I made it to my car and ripped the doors open. I tossed my bag in the passenger seat and pulled out as quickly as possible. White eyes still staring at me from the windows of the truck stop.